So, the interesting thing about this movie is that I thought it was really, and I hate using this word, like, just as a verb, but, like, feminist when I first saw it. Because, well, in regards to the first movie, which surprises me, because the first movie, it has a lot of female fans. My film professor was a woman. It was, like, her favorite movie. The Vice, maybe it's just confirmation bias or something. Vice did a visit to the set, and then the female reporter was like, "Oh, it's my favorite movie" or something. So it's like, what surprised me about the movie is that like, I maybe there's like two female characters in the original, and this one like creates like five different varied ones, all with names and motivations, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, because so many of them die.
So that makes it enough to be a feminist film.
I guess I just thought of like when I think of feminist, I don't think in terms of movies. I don't think of like pro-feminist. I think of like even, like it's just like not
shown women to be a person.
As like not sexist is essentially what I mean. It's just the bar is so low for filmmaking, and particularly the Blade Runner universe, that I guess the two blind me optimistic, because I'm like, well, I can't think of anyone else who'd add like so many female characters like that are unique, but then the criticism that it's like they're already used for objects of men. Or
I was looking up this specific quote about, hey, at least if I was late, I mean, it could have been worse. I didn't throw up anywhere. Oh, congratulations, what you didn't do.
Yeah.
It's your gold star. Of course, it could always be worse. You could have, thrown up on someone.
Yeah.
Or saluted Hitler, but you didn't. And that's what's important. It's what you didn't do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all that to say, like, I don't think it should be commended just because it had... Well, like, let's see. So, there's the girl in the bubble. There was Robin Wright. There was Anna Darnus. There was the woman with the bangs.
Love Sylvia Hooks.
Yeah. And
there was the prostitute.
The prostitute and her two prostitute friends.
There was the one leading the resistance who had the one eye.
And there was the
Dreamweaver.
The memory
Maker.
of Zooey Deschanel's mom.
/ Sarah Paulson's cousin.
Yeah? Is that who it is?
No.
Okay. I was like, I actually didn't know. It's just
her movie has really great casting.
Yeah, but...
Crank that.
And he was right. I don't think it was a feminist film.
Yeah.
I don't think something should be commended for, showing women to have agency and opinions and names. But we did notice, I was like the two highest points on the hierarchy in a movie about motherhood. Still, there were the two female like titans, the two women got together to talk about
a man,
Ryan Gosling,
which I didn't notice before.
Yeah,
because I was
because otherwise they weren't gonna. They'd be like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" Or, "Hey, weren't you working on something? Like, why aren't you doing Jared Leto's job?"
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Like she was did Jared Leto die in that movie?
No, he just doesn't. He doesn't show away after that last scene.
Maybe it's just his death scene was just wishful thinking on my part. Just seeing what my heart wants to see. Yeah, I thought it was good. It was better than I was expecting it. Truthfully, I did not like the first one. I don't like Robin Wright.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they in the CinemaSins they made a joke about like when she's flirting with Ryan Gosling's character in his apartment. She's like she's minutes away from Kevin Spaceying Ryan Gosling or something like that.
Well,
I find them that as kind of like they're actually comparable opposites in a way. Well, no, I guess not really.
I think it's interesting looking at Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling, and they're supposed to be like the next generation. When like the original was like the linchpin of it, it was just, it was like the galaxy brain version of the I'm not crying "It's raining on my face" joke, you know, like
But,
we all just wash away like tears in the rain.
well, that was
Versus like Ryan Gosling is someone who can outwardly, you know, he can have teary eyes. He's still not outright crying. We don't want our men too soft, but Harrison Ford, you know,
he cries, I think, in it. Like in but I didn't. I only noticed.
But it's like an interesting like gap because like you would have been, oh, you sissy if you cried at it.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, where that's clearly not true. If you ever tell any kind of fans of the original you don't like it as a film, then you see
there's something wrong with it.
a lot of men cry. What do you mean you don't like it? It's such good, you know.
I told Cheryl, Alex wanted Cheryl to watch it, and we all watched the final cut version. Were you there like a few months ago?
No.
And I'm like, I don't like it. Deckard isn't even good at his job. Nothing.
I can't think of. I mean, I've read the book. I've seen the
How
original.
long is the book? I thought
It's
it was
very
a short.
It's
story.
like novella.
Yeah.
But even still, the name Deckard. Can't think of anything besides Tim Heidecker as Decker, Port of Call, Hawaii. You know.
Yeah.
It was like classic Hollywood just stealing from on cinema at the cinema.
Did you pick
Once
up
again.
on at the end of him, Ryan Gosling in the snow is like Rutger Hauer in the rain, but it's like snowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is that like?
Is that
it's a
set,
like
is that baited trap
Rutger
there?
Hauer plus, you know, climate change equals Ryan
San
Gosling in the
Francisco.
snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it didn't really have a ton to say.
Yeah, it's kind of that. Like I can see how like I really like it a lot. It's the last movie like that I really liked and couldn't really find too many flaws. And even though that there's like I just watched both the Honest Trailer and CinemaSins, I'm like, wow, that's pretty stupid. But I didn't notice because I was enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
Even
Well,
though
I'll have
that
to
it's
check
like
'em out.
nitpicky. But well, they actually said the things that you already picked up on, which are like, you know, about the great, a woman character getting killed or something.
Yeah, or
but I always,
being a literal projection for like one-dimensional, you know, rendering of.
But I always thought the reason that I didn't ever jump to that conclusion before watching it with you was because the agency that Sylvia Hook's character has of like killing most of the people that she interacts with. I tried and couldn't find the philosophical thing that I mentioned before that like explains who Joe is and blah blah blah.
Well, it's interesting. Like I like the lack of humanity that the film, like, you know, when they showed Robin Wright dying, it jumps back a little bit just to show like the world keeps going no matter what like plans you make on paper or deals you're making with like Jared Leto's, you know,
You can't hold the tide with a broom.
Right, yeah, it was that scene, and I liked it that it was just like, oh, this might seem like earth-shattering development inside that.
Literal shattering.
Yeah, and then we just like back up and you're like, no, it's actually quite peaceful and nice. The world, like, I like that sort of bit, like that, you know, I guess it could have been more violent, in the way like it could have.
Somebody to come and lift this roast for me.
All right.
All right. Do you want to do it? Yeah.
You might just have
There
to
we
do
go. Got
a
it.
separate track and then splice them.
Yeah. Well, I'll do some.
Like I was hoping, like we saw Polka Dot Man get killed. Glenn Coco.
Oh yeah. I love how you remembered. Yeah, because his name is Coco.
Yeah, I remember that because I
You go, Glenn Coco.
I had a moment where I was like, was it Greg Coco? Was it Mark Coco? And I was wondering out loud, and then I was like, Glenn Coco. And then by the time I realized that he was dead, you know, you did a good job.
Yeah.
As a human sperm.
He has like such sadness to
But they
his
like
eyes.
killed him, and then they have like Avon Barksdale, and he's just like, don't seem that alive to me. And then the end of roll is like, all right, we wrapped filming for this character, and everyone claps. Maybe he ate him.
It makes me kind of laugh, but sad in a way that they
like,
the
that's the
world
only-
building that they set up for that movie, and it's like it means nothing because the movie bombed.
Yeah.
in
Was there anyone who wasn't like any real people besides that guy who is non-white. Like Anna
Oh,
Donis
yeah.
was a
Something.
holographic minority, which I guess.
Is she a minority? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I always thought that. Yeah, I guess.
'Cause
I always
she's
think
like
that
Mexican.
I think that. Well, I
Or
always think that
Spanish.
everybody in North America counts as a majority because people who are Mexican have roots in being Spanish, so then they're European. So the European centered worldview
Well,
is.
she's from Cuba.
Because people like to flip flop around on that kind of stuff. Like, what's her name? Uhura is
No, I
from
did
the
say
Dominican.
minorities. I said non-white.
Yeah,
people
yeah.
of color.
Yeah.
So, there was Avon Barksdale, and there was, Alexa de Armas, and that was it. Like
Yeah.
Batista, maybe.
Oh yeah.
And like.
Barkat Abdi, the guy who is like from Captain Phillips, who was and then Lenny James, who was
Dr.
the runner of the orphanage, and then Edward James Olmos, who was Gaff.
Edward James Olmos was in that.
Yeah, he was Gaff. He was the guy at the retirement home who made the
origamis. with the
bow
tie,
and then the lady who ran the resistance.
James Olmos. Are you saying that he's a not white guy?
That's actually a good question. I think
he's from California.
Okay, well, yeah.
He was known for
Stand and Deliver and Battlestar Galactica.
How can I get through to these kids?
He was in the original.
Yeah, he's of Mexican descent. I'm just not familiar with him.
Yeah. So it's all very like. I mean, that's one of the things that's like under
Edward James
the skin.
Olmos podcast.
I mean, that's like a decent handful of people.
Suppose so.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like
counting.
But it just...
Well, I remember...
Because, like, I mean, what I was going to say is that it could have been a lot more bloodthirsty because there was no... It was the questions of humanity and...
Oh, yeah, good point.
Synthesized humanity or empathy.
I liked how... One thing I thought about when I first saw the movie is that, like, if you think about it, the movie actually doesn't bother to... I said this during the movie. It doesn't bother to distinguish who's a robot and who's human. Like, a lot. Like, they never really confirm it for anyone. Like, I wasn't even sure that Kay... Like, I was still questioning whether Kay was... Or Joe, Ryan Gosling's character, was human. And he wasn't. Like...
because it wasn't the most important question, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, I think, like we were talking about with TV... like, just the evolution of TV and the way that we treat art in this way of like of the like Gen X days. There's been there, done that, like there's it's all been done kind of attitude.
Do you share that attitude?
The questions change because they're like, no, there's no answers, or you just have to ask different questions, and that's what I think that's like the biggest thing. It didn't have answers. It didn't pretend to have answers.
Yeah.
But the first one, I think, probably didn't have that kind of wisdom.
Yeah, I wonder, like...
Or pragmatism, like with its... I feel like the original movie feels like it's smarter than you, whereas this one just knows that you're... you have access to all the same information and everything else as everyone else.
I think of the movies like this and the original in a category of like... almost like the category that Joker ended up being, where it's like essentially it's a fundamentally blockbuster movie. Like it was made thinking like it was going to be the next Star Wars or this, and ends up like completely not being that and missing because it's so preoccupied with other things. But like a blockbuster should be, it asks like a few questions, even though it's not pushing like some major message or something.
What's the question of this one then?
The question of this one is like, what is human and does it matter? Is what I thought.
What is human? Like the limits of human?
Because you think about the relationship between Joy and Kay, and like she decides to break off the antenna and like travel with him on the remote. That way, if she dies, she'll have lived a human life. And like I remember thinking when I saw it in the theater, when she dies, I actually like felt something slightly. when she died, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly
Or no,
like
you just gave it to like a homeless person standing next to him, and he's like, "Here you go. I have no use for this."
Yeah.
And then they like chase the antenna to this, to the homeless guy who's now living with her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just being silly.
Yeah.
Though the antenna, you got to break the antenna. Is that the connection you have to her, or is that her connection to the network?
I never thought about that. But I did think, because I read that you can download all your Google information and stuff, and when they did, people discovered that, like, as they already knew, that Google records everything you say, but it also records what you're going to say right before you say, "Hey, Google."
Like when you breathe in?
Yeah, so I was...
Oh, I see.
So it's like if we're talking about something and then I say, "Hey, Google," then, like, Google will start to record. But, like, it's recording all the time, so what it does is it erases everything but everything right before that. So it's like, it's always recording, but it knows what to ignore. And I was thinking about that in the movie during, like, the Chinatown sequence, or when she's putting the tracker in his jacket or something, that when you hear the beeping sound, that's Ana de Armas's character listening, because Ana de Armas doesn't appear in the Chinatown scene. But, like, he comes back later and she's like, I noticed that you liked her, even though that she's not there, but she's always listening to, and always watching him.
It's similar to, like with the NSA.
Yeah.
If they're listening in on someone's call, or if someone's flagged, and they start talking about something that's not related, then they'll have to click off. I guess I'm thinking of wiretapping with, like, in, like, Goodfellas, that they would have their wives call each other, because the agents listening in would hear that they were just talking about dinner or gossip, and then they would turn off, and then that's when they would jump on the phones.
Yeah.
So I would apply that almost to, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Do you think you're
I was
being,
just incredibly distracted by everything that was
Do you
happening.
think you're on any NSA watch lists or anything like that?
Well,
Like
it'd be
anybody's
CSIS if it was in Canada.
What? Yeah, CSIS. Yeah.
But
we could be NSA contracted.
I don't think it's
CSIS
as personally so much as, like, keywords and websites and like I used to go on 4chan all the time. Maybe they still have me listen on that from, like, high school.
You know what's interesting? That I've realized in the book I'm reading, which isn't very good, but it's about the mass collection of data. Yeah.
It's hard for me to.
Yeah.
You can continue.
Yeah. Well, it's just how it's about like, nobody cares, like, if I search how to make a bomb or something. They care about, like, if everybody after doing one thing searches how to make a bomb. And it's like, that's the statistic or the data that
I would
matters.
imagine that they just, like, scrape it, or rather they catch it and they have it in case something turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we had this.
Yeah, I was like, this is like they can use it against you. Like, well, before your husband went, quote unquote, missing, you had Googled how to kill husband and how to get away with killing husband and life insurance schemes. And, I don't know. I
guess people don't really know that, but I always thought was like, why don't they search incognito? Which in a way wouldn't even matter because the ISPs would still track that, but still.
I really don't know.
I don't know. It's like the classic, like, oh, if I committed a murder, would I be able to cover my tracks kind of question. It's like I think often, like, if I were a politician, would I be able to wipe all of my data before I knew I was becoming a politician, that somebody couldn't track it down, or is my footprint too big?
I was scrolling through just trying to see if I can get little tidbits here from the trivia, but being that it's based on Blade Runner, every piece of trivia has to be like 4 paragraphs long. So.
Yeah. So, and then some of them on IMDb aren't even things.
That's what I'm looking
it's
at.
Like, we're just listing things at this moment, where it's like, this actor at the time.
Critics who saw the movie before its release were asked by director not to reveal characters and plot points.
What do you think about that?
What a piece of trivia.
Yeah. I remember, and I was an idiot, but, like, I knew that Ryan Gosling's character was a robot because I read the review, because A.A. Dowd revealed that he wasn't like, he's only human on the outside or whatever. I'm like, I shouldn't have read the review, but I wanted to see the movie so badly. But, like, I don't know, what do you think of that, of, like, I always wonder about like revealing plot points in reviews. I only know you've written a couple.
I
of
really
reviews.
haven't written any reviews, but the
Rule for spoilers.
yeah, like I mean, if I was interested in seeing a movie, I would read the review.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Much like I would, I like hate to watch the trailer right before I fucking watch the movie.
Yeah.
Something that was pointed out in here that is funny that Wood Harris and Ryan Gosling last worked together on Remember the Titans.
Oh yeah, he was in Remember the Titans.
What is pain? French bread.
Yeah.
Well, is that good enough for you, Sunshine?
Yeah.
Like, that was Baby Goose in that, right? Sunshine?
Yeah. I always wonder about, like, people, like, if it's like I said, becoming a filmmaker, I'd never want to get into the trap of, like, I'd always like the idea of working with a completely different crew, even though, like, your good ideas, like, are, when you depend on one crew, I don't know, like... A lot of Spielberg movies lately, like, look samey or are lit in a samey type way. I'm like, well, that's a bummer. But, like, I can't, like, you can't run the risk of, like, picking somebody who's not good and then, like, ruining it. But I don't know. It's like all things a creative risk. Like, his best work, some of the work that Spielberg is known for, he didn't use the crew that he does now. Jaws wasn't
use the same crew.
Yeah,
and
like the
Industrial Light and Magic.
He only used, I think, Yanis Kaminski, who is his cinematographer since Saving Private Ryan, or Schindler's List, I think. But like Jaws and Empire of the Sun, which is apparently like a nice visual movie and stuff, and Close Encounters, were all done by like a different cinematographer. It's kind of another thing that I worry about, like, as a filmmaker, that it's just, like, so out there. I'm never going to get that to that level of success, but, like...
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, but, like... Christopher Nolan used to work with this one guy who, like, was his composer. Yeah. And then after a while, he ditched him for Hans Zimmer. And it's like, imagine getting to a point of being like, this is great, but you're not good enough to hang with me, kind of thing. Like, that'd be...
Well, it's like, do you think P.T. Anderson, like, saying to Johnny Greenwood, guitarist for Radiohead, like, if he ever doesn't use Johnny Greenwood for one of his scores...
Would Johnny Greenwood be hurt?
Yeah, like...
I think he would.
Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah,
like, he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to use...
But
like,
did he use Johnny Greenwood before There Will Be Blood?
No, that was their first... to my knowledge, no.
Because if you look...
Oh my god, because before it was John Bryan.
Yeah.
And John Bryan was even in Boogie Nights.
So I wonder, like...
Come on, Nick, don't just sit there. But you know us, back us up.
But what would you think about... I wonder who did the... I know it doesn't matter, but who did the music for, like, Heart 8 or something was probably, like...
probably John Bryan. Well, John Bryan was, like, for... I'm just guessing for that one, but he was Boogie Nights and Magnolia. And been an Amy Man.
I've never, like, watching the thing that frustrates me the most, I know you don't care for Oscars, but, like, the production design of Blade Runner 2049 is
beautiful.
Probably the best that I've ever seen in any movie.
I agree.
And it's so frustrating that, like, Denis Villeneuve's next movie, he's not working with that production designer. He's working with the production designer he worked with since before he got famous and stuff like that.
But I mean...
Which is fine, because they know how to work
with
together.
The one with Arrival?
The same. But Arrival is similarly, like, there's the ship and stuff, but it's all very minimalist, and it's not very imaginative.
It's very restrained.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're doing something like Dune, it's a waste of opportunity.
I'd rather have the substance of Arrival over the
glossiness of Blade Runner.
Yeah, because I don't feel like a beautiful film.
Yeah.
Like music, costume, lighting, looks, cinematography, use of CGI, technology. It's all very immersive and beautiful, but you know,
it doesn't plunge very deep.
It didn't have a great deal to say. Yeah. That being said, it much more than the original.
Yeah,
which is no disrespect
is that the style of that?
Dick,
like,
but,
do you think that there is?
I just don't think Ridley Scott is as good as Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. Do you
like I watched that and wish Denis Villeneuve had made Ridley Scott films. Because, like, can you imagine if he made Gladiator?
Oh, that'd be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Thelma and Louise, maybe not.
Yeah.
For Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Xavier Dolan. I mean, if we're reassigning films to Quebecois, then I would probably pick Xavier Dolan for...
The hard thing for me, and I thought about it with Raised by Wolves and stuff, is with Ridley Scott, who actually directs, and then his son directs an episode. And funny enough, Raised by Wolves is written by the writer of Prisoners.
Cool.
Aaron Guzikowski or something
Wasn't
like that.
the same person who did Enemy as well?
I don't know who wrote Enemy. And that's why I find so weird about Villeneuve's career is that the difference between him and Nolan is that aside from a lot of things, but like Denis Villeneuve did like 2 minor like student movies, and then he took like 10 years off where he spent time like raising a family.
It was a gap year.
Yeah, where he was like really struggling as a filmmaker, like getting anything made, and worked on his writing.
It's a Canadian film industry for you, right? But...
Yeah. It really disappointed me when he said, like, in a Blade Runner interview, he's like, I could not have made this movie in Canada.
No, of course not.
And it's like, isn't that so disappointing, living in Canada?
It's just not where the money is, and but
is there anything the government could do to, like, it's like, okay, we're gonna focus on that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just like having a slow brain day.
Yeah.
But like, good. What was I gonna say? What were we talking about? Just the
is it possible to save any part of like Canadians? Like I'm jealous that Canadian cinema isn't.
Yeah, I mean,
robust in
it's funny. Like I remember right before like Schitt's Creek took off in the States, having a discussion with a friend who works in Toronto in like TV and film, and then saying like Schitt's Creek was probably like the high watermark for Canadian comedy at the moment.
Sure.
You know, for just
Take
having
that, Letterkenny.
Well, because Letterkenny wasn't as big of a deal,
Yeah.
and now Letterkenny is getting the attention in the same way like Trailer Park Boys did, or how Tom Green caught on here first and then went down there. It's cool. It's just super slow, and you can only seem to handle like one at a time. You know, and there are lots of good Canadian filmmakers on lesser budgets, like Bruce McDonald. Kevin McDonald rather. Kevin McDonald, because Bruce McDonald is from Kids in the Hall.
Right.
And
did Kevin McDonald make
Pontypool?
Yeah, I watched that.
Is it Bruce or Kevin? One of them.
I think it's Bruce McDonald.
And there's. God, one of the better movies I've seen this year that's not from this year. It was called The Last Night with Sandra Oh, and it was like Toronto right on the last day of everyone's life.
Oh yeah, I think I saw a trailer for that or something.
And earlier this week we were talking about Guy Madden.
Yeah, My Winnipeg.
That you didn't like My Winnipeg.
I couldn't get through. It was too obtuse. But it comes together. If you think about it, it's kind of funny. Like Blade Runner, directed by a Canadian, starring a Canadian production crew, Canadian special effects, and yet it couldn't have been made.
And they use a bunch of Quebec land waste.
Yeah. Granted,
Quebec
like
plays itself.
The absurd amount of money at play, where like a studio like Sony can be like, here's $110 million, just pay us back first before anything else, and then the producers put up, I think, $25 million or split the other half with Warner Brothers. There aren't really that many. I always wonder how that works.
There's a couple. It's like Greg Matola. It's Greg Matola, Canadian.
Yes, I think so.
And like,
shout out to Day Trippers.
Yeah, that's a sweet movie. Well, I was just looking behind me. I was like, what Canadian films do I have? And like with Michael
Imperioli.
No, the guy who does Dows. The one who does
Michael Dow's,
who does
the F
Fubar,
word, Fubar. Take me home tonight.
Greg Matola's from New York.
Yeah.
Why did I think he was Canadian?
Yeah, because he's got that Toronto vibe.
Well,
because he did a Canadian film in his time.
I thought Day Trippers was a Canadian film for some reason. Even though it definitely is in New York.
It's so weird that he did Superbad and then he did Adventureland and then his career, like in terms of making mainstream movies, went away. It's kind of
I
weird.
really hated Adventureland. I thought that movie sucked.
That was so disappointing.
I just wanted to quickly take a look as to why I thought Day Trippers was a Canadian film. Cinepix.
Doesn't have a Canadian distributor.
It was it was originally distributed by Cinepix, which got botched by Lionsgate. So that was from Quebec, and they did Shivers and Meatballs and
Meatballs
Buffalo
is-
66, which is Vincent Gallo's film, and The Life and Death of Bob Flanagan's Super Masochist, which is a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's a good family film. Do you know which one that one is?
No.
It's a guy he lives for pain.
What's this called?
It's called Sick, The Life and Death of Bob Flanagan's Super Masochist. You could, there's footage in it of him driving a nail through his penis and stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's just he wants all the
And
pain.
this is fun for you.
I don't remember seeing it in university. Well, actually, I had read about it, and then an ex-girlfriend was, she was like, "You're good with movies. I wonder if I describe this movie that I've been looking for since forever, you would know
Tip of
about
my
it."
tongue.
And that was the movie she was describing.
Oh, nice.
And then I was like, yeah, I think it might be this one about a super masochist, which I read about. I think through like a GQ article of the 50 gross or the 50
Grossest
like
movies.
horror movies you have never seen or something like that. And we watched it together, and she had seen it on like a commercial or read it in an article from when she was a teenager in Turkey, and like didn't know what that was. And then when we talked about we watched it together for the first time, she actually cried throughout the film because it was a realization of this memory that had eluded her and an answer she never thought she would get, and it was embodied by this Canadian distributed documentary about a Bob Flanagan BDSM celebrity.
Do you think about like if you were to get your movie made, like do you think you could make it a Canadian movie or something like that?
Yeah,
like
sure. Yeah, it depends.
I wonder
It
how
all
hard
depends
it
on
is,
who
like
the money.
knowing these people.
Well, it's just how are you gonna film it? How are you gonna make it?
Did I tell you about
These
that
days, it's just a
money
bigger
laundering, essentially money laundering organization that the guy
With the
came
Wolf
into
of Wall Street.
Staples
Oh.
told me about? He's like,
No.
they are Canadian distributors. Let me see if I can bring it up. But he's like, they're Canadian distributors, and they.
That's interesting. Like something that I'm just like glossing through the reactions for 2049, and a lot of people are saying it's a philosophical
Yeah, they're
science fiction.
I can't.
And
find
like
the
I mean,
video I
we had
saw.
the brief questions of like, well, they all think they're the one. So it's a shared dream or delusion. It's not based in fact, but a feeling. So is that not enough to spare them, Or is that just bad programming, right?
Yeah,
So there's those very surface level questions, but it's not like...
Somerville House is what they're called. And the guy basically said whether they might be like a money laundering organization, but they finance movies.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, goodness.
I'm like, I'll finance my dream. Worry about the rest later,
Yeah, well, there's Mark Cameron Twitchell in Edmonton. I don't know if you're going to look that name up or something, but he basically got involved with these money laundering schemes as a front to become Dexter in Edmonton.
Really?
He killed a guy in his garage, but he had like this whole thing where he got involved with like money lenders who were supposed to be financing his whole thing, and anyways, it was a very
What do you think of
poorly
the screenplay of this movie?
it was fine. I actually wanted to look that up to see if it was available, just based on what you were saying about
yeah, and
people raving about reading it. Oh man.
it's "and" with an A-N-D, which means that they worked on it separately. So that means Hampton wrote it and then Green wrote over it.
Screenplayed. What is this?
It's kind of interesting. Everybody, this is the only project I've seen where it's like everybody.
And here's the script.
Aside from Star Wars, nice.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of knew what they were getting into. It's like we know that like we're making something quote unquote important. Like so it's like hiring.
There's a lot of hype from the start.
Yeah, hiring the best. I remember the first thing that turned people around was actually them saying that they hired Roger Deakins, and then it was gonna have a story by the guy who wrote the original, and it's like okay, and then Denis Villeneuve. It's like okay, like it just kept getting better. Just bothers me. Yeah, Broderick Johnson and Andrew A. Kozov are the two producers at Alcon. And they, what did they did? Oh, they did the Book of Eli. I liked it. The downside, they've done a lot of, like, not great. But, it's a business. I wonder if they, like, something like Blade Runner could have come close to, like, bankrupting them, essentially.
Maybe. I did know that Roger Deakins shot Fargo. And I was just...
Oh, you didn't? That's what I think.
I was just, like, raving about that earlier today. In The Big Lebowski. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness! I had never looked up his Roger Deakins.
Yeah, so he was nominated like 12 or 13 times.
He's only won twice.
Yeah, recently for this
in 1917 apparently.
Yeah.
So he's done like 12 Coen Brothers films.
Yeah, he used to be their DP, like their.
And he did the Robert Ford, Jesse James one.
Yeah, very good stuff.
And Doubt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he did Doubt, eh?
Yeah, and we talk about shots from that movie every so often. Yeah. The Village.
Yeah, that's a
Jarhead.
Yeah.
I haven't seen The House of Sand and Fog, but I was told it was just cruelty. It was just like, why no one...
Sicario, again,
is... Beautiful Mind.
I think it was... yeah. Sicario is really good work from Roger Deakins.
The Hurricane.
I'm surprised you still haven't seen Sicario. Like, because that's arguably... Denny's best movie, but it's like similarly of like posing a lot of questions, but like it's probably the one he's done with the most social impact, followed by
actually I always forget that he didn't. I have to see that one. And what else has he made?
Polytechnic is actually
I
like that. I was surprised the level of craft of it. I'm like,
let's see, so of his films I've seen Blade Runner, Arrival, Enemy, Prisoners, and Polytechnic.
What did you think of Enemy?
That's fine. I get it mixed up with The Double.
Yeah, because they came out at the same time.
Yeah. And based on the Vladimir Nabokov story, which is featured in Blade Runner. He holds up the book of Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of quotes. So I watched there's like 10 million YouTube video essays on this.
Breaking it down.
And one of them was talking about, like, one of the quotes they say to each other is, like, the baseline test is taken from something, like, out of a novel. Mm-hmm. Like, the cells interlinked within interlinked is from something. But,
yeah, I need to see... And Sundays and Maelstrom. Reading about Maelstrom right now. And
Sicario, it's weird. Yeah. But it's kind of funny. I'm like, I think after I saw Prisoners or Sicario, I'm like, I'll see Polytechnic because it's a Canadian movie. And I'm like, he doesn't have Roger Deakins or whoever on this, so it won't, because he's been working with Roger Deakins since Prisoners. So I'm like, it won't be as good. It won't look as good. But like, what happened was,
Sicario.
It looks great. Like, it's photographed really well. And what happened was, even though that guy didn't stay as cinematographer, he worked in the camera department. Like, was the camera operator on these movies. And I'm like, what a great way to get experience of like, I won't be the main cinematographer, but I'll still be the assistant. There was somebody like who worked with Steven Soderbergh or something where it's like. It
was probably Soderbergh under a fake name.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking what was interesting was the editor of Tenet. She was, even though she was the main editor on Hereditary, she was not the main editor on Midsummer. She was the co-editor beneath somebody. Yeah, but she was the lead editor on Marriage Story, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, that in Hereditary... I mean, I can't really even say because I'm not an editor, but I was like, they have similar feels to it.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I only know how to like basic edit. Like I wonder like the things that some editors can do. Like because you think of edit just like placing the film in a certain order, but like certain techniques of like I don't even know how to
like,
create boxes or remember how to do.
Cuts,
Yeah,
all this stuff, like how to tell a story just from the decisions you make that way alone.
but I do think about the feeling of stuff a lot. Did you say you had or had not seen Incendies?
I have not.
It's not his best movie. It's like his dark horse movie, but it's like it's interesting. It's just like a cross country road trip movie.
Yeah,
I can see
sorry.
why.
I was yawning.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm a little woozy.
What do you think of? Oh yeah, I already asked you what you think of Dune. Did you ever see the original movie?
No, I did not. It's didn't seem necessary. I tried to watch it with in university with my friend Mike, but he got through it and liked it. But I think he was just a fan of Sting.
I read the people credit Sting with like ruining that movie somehow.
No, I was making a joke mostly about his outfit and that. But.
The funny thing, I read a review of Dune. It's like it's not a good. The guy said, and it was a review written in the last 2 or 3 years. It's like it's not a good movie, but it was built to last. Meaning that all the and I watching the trailer, all the effects and stuff holds up. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. That like if you make like it's going to be at a certain quality, but it's going to maintain that quality and not be upstaged. That's like a very deliberate, interesting choice, I guess.
It's something I think might be fun to do, just based on stuff we've talked about, and is take a look at Chris Nolan's the factors in how he tells a story and try to manufacture a Chris Nolan film just based on the details.
Yeah, he said, did you see the Studio Binder 10-minute video on how he directs a film, and he talks about being very mathematical and he draws out graphs. And
what a nerd.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff seems like a nerd. It's like, I'd love to do it made me think, I'm like, oh, you know, it'd be cool if there was like a time travel movie, and it would be like the guy, like if I wanted to do like a really cloying thing, I'd go back to like where you time travel and like you're setting events in order, and it's like you set up the meeting between like the Chris Nolan as like a college person, but he's like clearly dressed like Chris Nolan, and you nudge him in the direction of like his wife or something, and it's like, but then people can just see it just visually because of he's dressed of how he looks, and he has the British sound. Yeah.
He looks like his lips always hurt.
Yeah,
it's like super chapped lips.
Yeah,
that's how I picture it. There's like lips like a catfish.
I feel it's kind of a bummer that did I tell you when I went to see Mom asked when I was going to see Tenet, why is this film like a big deal? And I like, to somebody who doesn't follow the industry, I'm like, well, it's kind of like Steven Spielberg directing a movie, and she got like offended. She's like, nobody's like and she's like, nobody's like Spielberg. I'm like, isn't that right? Because Spielberg like, well,
it's not real cinema.
But like the funny thing about that is that Chris Nolan again works with mostly the same people, whereas Steven Spielberg has like swapped out, like he has the same casting people and stuff like that, but the set people he switched with, and like the worlds of his are very well realized. I think what this movie makes me realize is just that I like movies with realistically designed sets. Yeah. In fact, when I was
high production values.
When I was imagining my safe spaces, I thought of it in terms of the space first, and I designed like a graph, which I have under here, of like what the space actually looks like. And then what?
I said nice. That's good. It helps. Yeah. I do that every so often.
And then I listened to Aaron Sorkin, and he was like, if you're talking about a place, it's probably a TV show. I'm like, And then I read about the guy who wrote Mr. Robot, and he was like, I wrote it. He described it the exact way I wrote Safe Spaces. And he's like, and then I cut it off here. And I'm like, okay, this can't be a movie.
There's really no rules. Yeah. There's just guidelines.
Yeah. Like, never compare your career to anyone else's. I
think it's just like everyone's. There's all the cliches about that. I hate to wrap it up. But I'm like very dizzy, so I'm gonna go have a walk. Because I'm very low energy, and I didn't want to be
like Jeb Bush,
a bad
we're
bad
good.
presence.
Yeah.
You know, it's especially on your birthday podcast, and
No,
I enjoyed
it's
the
fine.
movie.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just like I can't hold on to like the thoughts that I want to make, and
Like you want to go right or something? Or
no,
right,
it's just
you're
that
tired.
I'm like very
Drifting away.
I'm very dizzy. Yeah,
I have to
so-
say, this time watching the movie, I don't hold on, like, that was the third time I saw it. Really liked it in the theater. I watched it over at Dave's when I was dog sitting. I'm like, well, that hold up. And then this time, it's like, it's good still, but it's like
You could
realizing
see
that
the
the ideas
seams,
aren't
yeah.
there. But I thought that for a movie I watched recently, and then I rewatched it. Yeah, The Dark Knight.
It can
And
be
then I
kind of
rewatched
sad,
it.
right? When you watch something, and you're like,
Oh,
I
that.
grasp it. Like you can get it. It's just it seems accessible.
Yeah.
Like I think it was the first time I watched a P.T. Anderson movie, or I'm just like, oh my god, or like a Charlie Kaufman. Or I had this thought during The House That Jack Built, because it was first time I'd seen it in a while, and coming back to it, it seemed not as overwhelming, not daunting. It like I could see how it was made.
Isn't it just because the world has gotten more violent since
It could
that
very
movie?
well be, because we're on the when that came out, the precipice of everything blowing up
Yeah.
versus so the visuals of violence against Americans for the sake of wearing a red hat was something not yet spoken or realized.
Yeah. And now
And
it's
so
done.
it's so provocative of just imagine just killing people just based on their hat choice, just to take it completely out of the context as possible.
Yeah.
Versus now where, I mean, that's happening,
Yeah.
neither side, I shouldn't say neither side, there
They're both good.
there are people on both sides. Well, no, but to say both sides, it suggests that, it's an equal fight. The red hats versus everyone else.
Do you think,
When
like,
it's
I
really
think
just the red hats making the decision at the minute, so...
that these next, not just, I'm thinking of it in terms of, the new consoles coming out, but, the presidential election and COVID-19, I see these, next 2 months or the end of the year as,
Season finale?
completely world-changing in terms of,
Potentially.
I think so.
I mean,
hugely.
we're... it's always just a bad Tuesday morning away from years of, memes and the way that things change, right? Today being September 11th.
Yeah. I keep
Everything
forgetting
was...
that it's my birthday.
There was no safer time to fly than September 10th, in 2001. That was the safest it would have been to fly. We don't know that. We didn't know that at the time, and then something happens and it changes everything. So, I mean, when you think about it this way, let's see, Death Stranding
Yeah.
hasn't even been out for a year.
You mean now?
Yeah, no, it hasn't even been out for a year.
It's been out for 2 years.
No, it's been...
Okay, it didn't come out in 2019.
No,
It
I
came
thought
out in 2018.
maybe it was because I only got it. Maybe that's
Yeah.
why I was thinking.
It actually
But I thought it was released last Christmas.
came out in November of 2018.
I thought it was November 2019.
Well, it feels like it was November because
that was my example, or that Black Panther only came out last year.
Well, have you
that
heard the
was only a
joke?
year.
Have you heard the joke of I don't?
Yeah, no, it came out on the end of...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was
that's so
November
weird.
2019.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. It hasn't even been out for a full year, but it feels like it's been 4 years.
Oh, that is
Like
weird.
any
It
other
does.
any other year, it would have been the Lebanon explosion would have been the big story. But we're in the midst of historical stories breaking every day. We've gotten one of the 19 Bob Woodward interviews, with Trump.
Oh wow, yeah.
Where he's admitting and speaking probably more fluently and fluidly and lucidly than we've ever heard him speak on the virus. And that was in February. And so everyone keeps saying that's just a taste, 19 full interviews. And so, it's a weird feeling, to even try to find a job.
I can't
now,
believe
right?
after-
Because everything is on shifting grounds and nothing is certain.
I can't believe that, like, after the first interview, like, he was kind of embarrassed the
Why
last
even
time he
give an
was
interview?
interviewed by Bob Woodward. Why would he do it again?
Well, it's just he would
He must like all the president's men.
great valued Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And it was like, what if we had Richard Nixon but without intelligence? I don't know.
Yeah. I always wonder how people characterize intelligence. Like, is
Well,
being smart such a thing?
Nixon led into Reagan, who fucked up in ways that we are still
Oh, did you see the meme?
experiencing. So that's why I'm thinking like Trump can probably just lead to someone who's going to make a bigger mess.
Did you see, because they're recreating Ronald Reagan in Call of Duty
Yeah.
World War, it's like press F to send crack to black
To
neighborhoods.
the inner cities, to ignore AIDS,
Yeah.
to press F to put explicit language warnings on CDs. CD covers. That was Nancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the worst thing they did, was those little warning things.
Yeah.
Not AIDS or the homeless crisis or prison industrial complex or creating
Lately,
a
I've
new
realized
slaves.
there's just
and
a whole problem with how we deal with
homelessness
censorship.
and- yeah, there was pretty much all of Reagan. It all goes back to Reagan.
Yeah.
And the last time we had a fucking empty suit.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm
Can
rambling.
I get a prediction on you on who's going to win the election?
Well, I've been enjoying the recent suggestions that if there's no way to cook the books or change the numbers, that Trump will resign and then have Mike Pence pardon him.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
I
he can
think
do that after the election.
I think Trump's
right?
gonna win.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he won before with 2% of the vote or
Mhm.
whatever criminal thing, and
Mhm.
there's no reason. What has changed to suggest we're going to change course?
I think
When
that
we have the great
America, that the world is still, or America is still sexist, and really the one difference
there's
was
nothing
Hillary Clinton.
America loves more than to waste a great reckoning.
What does that mean?
Well,
Because then
What did we
isn't
get after
Donald Trump's
9/11?
reckoning?
where did we get after 9/11? What happened after Me Too? There's nothing happens. We have the big bang, the big show of things without any real follow through or substantial change.
Aren't people more interested though to see now? Like, isn't it more appealing to you to see a Donald Trump that was once president but isn't any longer is more interested?
That's
than
more interesting, but there's nothing to suggest that anything's going to change because nothing has changed. We're still on the same track we were. He's fucking up with impunity and without any attempts to cover anything up, and nothing's changing. Nothing's happening. Oh, but just let the Democrats get in there. Those two, they're not going to do fuck all.
part of the same thing.
Yeah, it was two left wing, right wing, two wings on the same fucking bird.
Yeah, all leading to 2049.
Woo!
Yeah.
At least Harrison Ford will still be alive.
Yeah. Well, it
He's
depends
got a
on
lot
if
of
he's
planes.
flying or
Yeah,
not.
he's got a lot of planes to crash.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
That's actually a good example of somebody effing up with impunity, because
Just who's gonna say no?
Yeah.
Who's gonna get, Kobe?
Yeah, too many people got on that plane. Or was it a helicopter? It was a
Throwing his
helicopter.
name out there.
Yeah, Kobe.
I don't know if Harrison Ford's what he's flying, but he shouldn't be flying. He shouldn't even be driving.
He,
He shouldn't be
he probably
acting either.
he probably can't drive. It's the only way he can escape.
Yeah, they're just see him in Man of the Wild
Yeah.
or Call of the Wild.
Yeah.
When it was just it's all crazy CGI, especially the scenes where he's driving.
Yeah.
It was the car wasn't even on, but some PAs still died.
Yeah.
He ran them over.
Yeah.
He got vehicular manslaughter from a
It's-
stationary car.
I don't know why it's such a weird fact to me that if you're an actor that you get driven, you can't drive yourself. Did you know that?
Insurance, maybe.
Yeah, because it comes back to doing your own stunts and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the
The
stupid.
cost to insure the driver is more than the car would cost, probably.
I don't know how it would work, but it was I was thinking about how they made a big deal about Jared Leto getting blinding himself and being driven to set and stuff, but it's people have to get driven to set for insurance reasons anyway, because once you sign a contract for a film, you're the studio's property and nothing can happen to you
Weird.
on their watch.
Gross.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Property.
Well, yeah, that's what Margot Robbie said about like how she thought it'd be really cool to be a star, and it is, but she like didn't realize that like I get a trailer and stuff, but then as soon as like she was in like Suicide Squad or something, she realized like, oh, like it's not that they're giving me a trailer, it's that I have to be in the trailer because I have to be on studio property because they need me. And it was like a realizing that you are being objectified in a way that you thought it was cool.
Literally commodified.
Yeah, and then so she
sees the means of productions.
Yeah, that's why she wants to like hang out with everybody and like visit everybody all the time because she doesn't want to be regarded as property.
Because she's the literal actual Sharon Tate.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not with the same ending.
Well, it's just like in the same way, like she lived in that film, and like Tarantino's not beholden to history, so she belongs to him in a way.
Man, I wish all these like movies that were popular and enjoyed, like there's just too many male directors. I don't mean that there should be less people being directed, but it's disappointing.
Like the same perspective and the same stories and.
Well, the fact that, like, in every movie, I'm actively wondering about the gender politics because there's going to be a way that the guy screws it up by making it, like...
And as well, because of that, too, when you watch, like, a movie like Booksmart, and you're like, wow, this is really good for a girl. You know, that was more the discourse than it being a standalone film that had, like, should, you know, be good and bad on its own merits.
Yeah.
Instead, it's by women, and it's being sold to you. And I mean, sure, the ideology's great, and similar to your questions at the start about feminism, it like women love everything.
Yeah,
you know, and women are
even if
like
it's problematic.
The problematic stuff, and it's just their perspective and their love, and that's. You know, it's not a monolith. That's what's important to remember. Like, what feminists to some might be exclusionary to others. Hashtag J.K. Rowling. And, you know, trans women are real women. Like, for real, fuck you, J.K. Rowling. You know, but that's... A lot of people would say, like, oh, well, she's a feminist, but, like, a third wave exclusionary feminist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's people are people.
It's not...
Even
it's a very convenient, like, term and stuff if you want to... open it up or politicize anything, but like what does it actually mean in motion and action? And
do you see any exhaustion in these kinds of things?
I think there's just the exhaustion in how it's being sold to you.
Yeah, because I like a lot of times I think about
Beyonce. She loves women. That's why men write her all of her songs, or that she has to have a guest spot with Jack White instead of some like other like
King
woman
princess.
who's like you know who's like able to be an equal voice to her. Yeah. But instead it's just again, who's hotter? Is it this girl or this one? And I was like, well, it's in direct competition with each other. It's just really it's an idea put on paper so it can be sold to you.
Do you think we'll ever achieve like equality in the entertainment space anytime in our lifetime?
I don't think it's
just the
I
same
don't know how to
patterns
define it, but probably not.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, what a hopeful note to end on.
Well, just like with Blade Runner, it makes you wonder, because like 2049 is really not that far away. Like that's in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's 29 years
we'll
from
be like younger than our parents when that year happens. Like
we'll be
younger than they are now is what I mean.
Yeah, I'll be 30.
You'll be 57.
Yeah, something in my 50s. Yeah. I actually think I might be 49. No, I'm not. Oh, 49 plus 7. Yeah. 56.
Yeah, so
I'll be Keanu Reeves.
But the thing is that we're seeing the images from like around, and they look like 2049 does.
The blackout, we're just waiting on billionaires to save us.
Yeah, and we're beholden to those who have the spices.
It's so weird. It's so... Oh, you know what Dad pointed out successfully they didn't like about he didn't like the Dune trailer? Because they didn't mention the word spice.
Yeah, no,
which
they
is
show
like
it a little bit. But
yeah. The
spices flow.
Wait, the spice is the sand?
Like when... I thought that was spice in his hand.
I thought it went... Well, you know... Maybe if the production design was better.
Was that a bit of paprika? Bit of cinnamon?
Oh, what was that? We saw that recently. What was that from?
I don't know. Well,
We saw
we
something on-
were saying about white women's cooking.
No, but
It was the Black Jeopardy with Black Panther T'Challa
Yeah.
And then-
Chadwick
with the
Boseman.
Karen's potato salad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she counts salt as a spice. Wasn't that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
No,
would've-
but I think it could have been. I'm
That
trying to
was-
think of what could have been Kroby Cat's thing, almost
Okay.
like
Or-
on the E3
Yeah.
VGA videos.
Where's Paprika?
I swear we saw it like recently.
Wasn't there a Johnny Depp movie called Paprika?
No, there was an animated movie, an anime movie called Paprika.
And
It
there was
Jo-
Chocolat.
Yeah.
And then Perfume is the one I'm actually thinking of.
The Story of Murder with
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman.
That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought in my mind, I was like, that movie's called Paprika, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's Perfume.
Did you ever see the movie Perfume?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it good?
I don't recall.
Yeah, well, it's not a good.
That
I
was
get
one from,
confused
like-
between Perfume and the movie Fur.
That was like 14, 15 years ago, right? So-
Yeah. I remember the trailer for it.
Well,
And
I
now
tried to make a joke to my friend where I realized like that I was wrong without who's a Dallas Stars fan. Because I was just trying to say like, oh, they haven't been this good in like 16 years.
Since the movie Perfume.
I said like time's so crazy. The last time Dallas got this far, Buffalo was a good team.
Mhm.
And then people rightfully pointed out, I was like, no, Buffalo wasn't good back then. So I was like, wow, it's been longer than 16 years that the Buffalo Sabres have been a good team.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like
16
that's like
years-
the most unrealistic thing about Bruce Almighty is them winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even though the Buffalo Sabres win once?
They've never won. They haven't won a Stanley Cup since the 80s, if at all.
Because I remember them winning.
They went to the Stanley Cup final and lost
Yeah.
against the Dallas Stars.
Didn't they do it back to back? Like, and then they lost
Dominic
to Carolina
Hasek.
Hurricanes, right?
If they lost the Hurricanes, then that would have been in the conference finals at the latest because they're both in the Eastern Conference.
Because I remember. Oh shoot! Yeah. So they would have lost them right
the
before.
Dallas Stars.
Their teams that I don't like that.
The
logo.
Buffalo Slug.
Yeah. Buffalo Kill founded History City, no winning minor.
Yeah,
Stanley
I
Cup
want to say
zero.
like back with like
Don't have any conference president.
what's that fucking guy's name?
Division
That
champion.
fucking guy, Marcel Dion.
Who's that?
I think one of their best players.
I'm just looking at the
Well,
season.
like the one I was trying to make a joke that about Dallas at Buffalo's expense, but then just thinking like, oh man, I had to go back further than 16 years. That's all. I'm pretty scattered.
Yeah.
I do want to have a walk before we go where we have dinner, which will probably be ready
Yeah.
sooner than later.
Yeah.
So the Buffalo Sabres suck.
Yeah.
That movie was good.
Yeah. Wait, how would you rate it? Because I think of it as like a B+
Yeah,
movie.
that's probably around there, like
Yeah.
B plus.
When's the last? So that was the last like movie I saw that I thought was, I don't know, it was perfect in terms of what I wanted from it.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you were like completely satisfied by a movie that you saw?
I'm thinking of ending things.
Yeah, you were
It was
completely.
very recently.
But is it like?
I
well,
was
guess it
satisfied
doesn't
that I
matter.
watched it again the next day
Yeah.
and took notes.
Did you like it more than adaptation? You think, or do you just
No.
don't compare stuff like
It's
that?
tough to compare it to
Yeah.
adaptation because that was like what do you call it? Like a formative film for me at a formative age.
Well, isn't it? I wonder,
And
is that the
Synecdoche
problem?
as well.
Because I haven't liked a movie since. Loved a movie since 2017.
Maybe you're just not trying the right things because
Well,
like
well, that's what I'm thinking.
because like
after
the first
this,
time I saw like a Kiarostami film,
Yeah.
or like Certified Copy.
But is it because there's no more formative movies for me?
But that's the thing. It's just you have to continue to look and push yourself because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have come to love the before films as much as I do now if I hadn't watched Kiarostami's films, and he's like Iranian,
I see.
and then made Certified Copy,
Mm-hmm.
which I was like, what's this? I just like Julia Binoche,
Yeah.
and I was like, and then by the end of it, I was like, this movie's beautiful, and this movie's like, giving me a lot to think about. And I was like, oh, I can't believe I enjoyed something start to finish like that, where a lot of it is just walking, talking, and then it made me think of the before movies, but I didn't come back to them until like a couple years later, and then I had a greater appreciation for where I was in life compared to the characters of those three films, as well as because I had pushed my own comfort and boundaries and then came back to something that I previously dismissed. It was like new again.
Yeah.
And so that
now you're
it's like formative again, like versus like back when like Bernie came out, or the first time I tried to watch Slacker, like in early university, where I was like, whatever, man. Like versus if I watch it now, I'd be
to be confused with the movie Slackers with Jason Schwartzman and Devon Sawa. It's
I don't even remember. This is the Slackers or Hackers.
It was actually made. It was like within 3 years of Hackers, but it's basically like a crappy old school or something, and it's like they and basically Jason Schwartzman is like a proto incel or some like I just remember
like a good role for him,
where it's like the guy makes a hair doll of this woman, and then she's like, "You made this of me? You're sick." He's like, "I didn't make it. It fell out of your hair that way." He's like, "It fell out of your hair that way."
But it's worse.
Yeah.
I think like
watching that preview is a formative movie for
if you start watching a lot of your favorite filmmakers' favorite films and see how they got to where they were, because like watching Noah Baumbach's favorite movies and seeing like the movie like Girlfriends from like the 70s, and then be like, you know, that it was a great film, but it also like put. I mean, Francis Ha was always cool, but that one was like proto Francis Ha, and just to see where his ideas come from, or then watching like Kramer versus Kramer and be like, this movie's like not great, and then watching Marriage Story and be like, this movie's like, it's like unfairly compared to Kramer versus Kramer because it's like 4 times the film that Kramer versus Kramer was. Great script, the moral for these boomer adults were like. Hey, pay attention to your kids sometimes, you know? Like, they're real people. I think
Marriage Story was the last movie, actually, that I completely forgot. That's, like, one of my favorite movies.
With, like, Parasite?
Yeah.
That was one that blew me away.
Parasite,
Burning,
I was like, Parasite to me was the one thing I don't like about Parasite is that I did, like, I almost, it's stupid, but I checked out of the movie, not checked out, but I'm like, this isn't where I wanted it to go. Yeah. Like, when the maid comes back into the picture, it's like, it's so clearly that they shouldn't, but you mentioned earlier they can't help themselves at that point. But I thought it was going to be more internalized between the two families, rather than somebody who was kicked out of the story coming back in. I thought there was another way to do it. I don't know.
So, like, for example, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you're really into, like, Soderbergh and Chris Nolan and this sense of, like, political thriller or, like, a structural thriller, and then you find the works of, like, Costa Gravis, you know, like, who did Missing and... Zed and these other like really cool political films, like thrillers, you know, or if we will love Chris Nolan, so we start watching, like, we knew how much Heat was an influence on like Dark Knight, so then we started watching a lot of Michael Mann films, which then leads to like seeing movies by like
who would have he been influenced?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was just trying to back it up, like of like Samuel Fuller or Jules Dassin films, you know, or William Friedkin, and like which movies he loved, and you just back it up.
Who
and
did
there are pockets
the
everywhere.
original Straw Dogs?
It was just Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but you just gotta back it up. It's like if you like a song. And then you listen to the band and you don't really care for the other songs. See what's produced by. And then it probably has like similar things going forward. And there's always threads like, oh, I liked... the movie was well written, but I didn't like this. So then you look up the writer and then you see what else they've written. Or the production design is amazing, so you see who does that. And you follow that. And there's so many different threads, but you do have to push yourself and actually watch new stuff every so often. That's why I like going backwards in Toni Collette's filmography, and then I was like, oh, I haven't seen Muriel's Wedding, and then asking Mom about it, and she raved about it.
Dad even liked it.
So, and it's Australian film.
Good filmmaking down there. Where
well,
Ben
just
Mendelsohn
like what we
comes
thought
from.
of the Fall Guys with the Kiwi Classic, you know.
It's kind of funny. Russell Crowe mentioned his best movie that nobody's seen is like an Australian film he did in the 90s.
Yeah, it's called like The Most Beautiful Year, or whatever that.
The Ridley Scott movie,
Yeah.
A Good Year.
A Good Year.
I remember saying to you once of like one of our first filmmaking conversations. All I remember you saying is like Ridley Scott should do this, and they're like he would just cast Russell Crowe because it was in the middle of
I
their
don't really
collaboration.
care for Ridley Scott too much.
You know what I'm surprised at? That I've slowly began to care a bit more for Russell Crowe. Like, to me, he was, like, on the verge of being canceled, and then now I'm thinking, I'm like, he's not that bad.
There was, like, not too long ago, there was this
when he
idea
said
that,
about
like,
women
really
or something.
only, like, the celebrities you'd want to be friends with. So everyone getting upset about Billy Bob Thornton being mean to Gian Gomeshi. Oh, look, Canada's, like, having a big plate of french fries with no gravy.
Yeah. And then it turns out that Billy Bob Thornton was the good guy.
Yeah, those two.
I love
everyone's
that.
like, what a jerk.
Yeah.
I'm like, who fucking gives
Romper
a shit?
Stomper.
Oh, yeah, there's a prison one, right?
A group of skinheads become alarmed at the way their neighborhood is changing.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Eric Bana.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a fan of
I
Bana.
want to go have a little wander outside because I'm just starting to get sweaty.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, of course. No, it was
Being on my
fun. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
It was fun
Doesn't
watching the movie.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like
Well,
my
it
birthday.
will. We'll have dinner and then cake, and then maybe you'll get a Leaf shirt or something. But
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah. I keep forgetting. Yeah,
we'll see. But
it's not as fun as your birthday. We should have watched Twin
I'm
Peaks.
just in the hot and cold. Well, we can.
Yeah, I would. Like, I'm into it now because we put enough into it that I'm kind of like, well, what's happening on Twin Peaks? We got to return to the return of
I
Twin
hate to
Peaks.
bail on this, but I just need to go get fresh air.
All right.
I'm dying
Yeah,
for some reason.
take care. And you too, audience. There's some sign-off that I haven't come up with. All right, bye.
Try not to die.
Yeah.